PXG 317CB, 317T, Gen 6P. I'll show you the differences, period. So we're going to do a comparison between the 317CB, 317T, and then the Gen 6P head. So look at really what are the performance differences, what are their characteristics, and why would you choose one versus the other. So you're going to start with the CB. The CB is a single piece forging. Obviously you've got the signature weight in the middle there. So this is a one piece construction. There's no infill, there's no pocket cavity, there's no face tech, unlike the other two heads. So this is a classic muscle cavity head where they've placed some central weight behind the strike point for a little bit more solid feel and a little bit of perimeter weighting for a little bit of margin of error. So this is really aimed at your kind of classic, not quite a blade style player, but someone wanting that softer forged feel and maximum control. The moment you take out face tech, you're giving consistency of spin and flight and distance. So you're very kind of neat, clean head, got the white line on the bottom groove as they do with all the heads. Yeah, very solid feeling head. I think that's one of the elements of this. It's a very much for someone who's played a kind of traditional forged blade or muscle cavity style head over the years. You know, there's no frills to this head at all. Just a well-made forged head. So maximum feedback. Not quite minimum forgiveness. The MB version just has minimum forgiveness, but you know, very solid, very controllable feel. You know, and out of you know, those couple of shots, it's sort of a mid-launch, mid-spin profile. I'll go into the spin of the launches more when we compare the heads, because that's where there's a little bit more interest in that side of things. Yeah, very classic, very unfussy head. So we then move to the T, the 317T. So with the 317T, it looks like a blade, but actually there's an internal cavity. And if I show them toe end on, the CB versus the T, the difference in thickness between the two heads. So what you'll see is that the width on the heads may not be too clear on that one, but because of the internal cavity, it's a thicker blade front to back. So in order to get the internal material in, the sort of vibration dampening, but also supports the face to give it a little bit more speed, they've got to have a slightly bigger head. So really serves two functions. So this is a more of a multi-piece construction head. It's got some tungsten in the sole to bring the center of gravity down, help a little bit with launch, give a bit more forgiveness. It's got a thinner face that saves a bit of weight, takes a bit of weight out of the face, allows them to perimeter weight, give a bit more forgiveness. But also that thinner face gives a bit more speed. The internal material supports that face, which allows them to go a little bit thinner, creating a little bit more ball speed across the face. But in this model, it's without that kind of, for want of a better phrase, cannon-like effect. It's still one of the major elements of this head is very much a player's head. It's geared around giving a bit more forgiveness, a little bit more ball speed, but without losing the control element as much as possible. So almost, one could argue it's almost like a bit of a combo head, combo set within the one frame, where in the 8-9 and pitch is more towards that one piece construction of the CB, and as you progress through the set up towards the long irons, you're getting more and more depth to the weighting, more tungsten in the sole, more progression on the face from a speed point of view, and more distance progression. So very similar head shape to the CB, so they would blend well together if you chose to. So whilst this has got the pocket cavity on the inside, normally you get a little bit of a hardness, a bit of a click to the strike, which because of the infill, it doesn't have that. It still retains quite a soft feel off the head. Well, that one was a complete miss hit, so not going to be overly useful for a comparison. I'll do one more there. That was almost a shank. So we'll get one that's a little bit nearer the middle of the face. Yeah, so still retains a really soft sound and feel off the face compared to when comparing to the one-piece CB. So going to then move on to the Gen 6P. Now this is a step up in terms of, in principle, forgiveness, a slightly kind of thicker thicker front to back, a little bit of a deeper cavity again here to get the depth of weight away from the face, to get more infill, more of a cavity. That shows you, that back plate shows you where the tungsten is. There's more tungsten in the bottom part of the head as well. Then you can get that weight down and back, which helps a little bit of launch, a little bit of flight, but primarily gets the weight. You can't move it far from the face on an iron, but as far away from the face and as deep as possible. So this one's geared towards a little bit more ball speed, a little bit more distance than the T, so it's a progression off that. And really quite a different head now we're starting to get into than the CB series. So this really moves more into a, I wouldn't say game improvement head, and there's categories that don't like to be banded about, but it is quite a forgiving head, geared a little bit more towards distance than control. So we're now stepping into a head that's primary function is to gain you a little bit of yardage. So there are generally some knock-on effects to that change in structure. So where gone slightly thinner again on the face, a little bit more of that infill to gain that yardage, or gain that ball speed to gain that yardage, there generally is a little bit of a knock-on effect to spin. So one of the things that PXG have done very well over the years is, whilst yes, we changed construction, so there's a little bit of a harder note off the face, it's still not too harsh. That infill in the head really does help to keep the feel of the head actually really pretty soft. It's something that PXG, to be fair to them over the years, have always done very, very well. That they've always traditionally had quite a soft feel relative to construction. It's a forged frame, which also helps, and helps from adjustment of loft and lie perspective as well. All three of these models have that adjustable weight in the back, which helps from a balance and a swing weight and a build point of view from a versatility standpoint. But they retain, because of the infill, that softer feel off the face. Yeah, notice we've got a sound off the face that has a little bit more snap, a little bit more pop. But what the knock-on effect of that is we shall see from the averages on the data here. So what we can see as you move through those heads, I'm going to say there's one shot with the T that I am going to remove, which was the one that was nearly a shank. So what we can see is we work through those from the bottom up, the bottom being the CB, which is that single piece forged construction. Smash factor on that and ball speed is a little bit less. Actually, smash is very similar to the T for me. So there's really the T is not giving dramatically more ball speed, but a little bit more margin of error off center ultimately. And then as we go to the P at the top, we can see that's then kicked up again. The ball speed's kicked up a little bit more. So there is not much of a progression for me from the CB to the T, but there is another couple of miles an hour, mile an hour more, because we see club speed's a bit less on the swings with the P. There is a couple of miles an hour more ball speed proportionally off that head than the other two. What there also is a progression in launch angle when we go to the P. So whilst it's actually, for this data, it's 1 degree stronger. The other two are exactly matched. This is 1 degree stronger on loft. It's launched it higher. So it has picked up the launch angle. So a deeper CG, center of gravity, lower in the head, does pick launch angle up a little bit. But partly with that lower loft and that deeper center of gravity, the spin's down 200 revs over the T. But 440 odd revolutions over the CB. So that's one of the things that progression in center of gravity does to the heads. So as you move through, the spin proportion is highest on the CB, mid on the T, and then lowest on the P. So you're getting different launch and spin characteristics from each head. So the more you move towards ball speed in the P, the less spin you're going to get, but a little bit more launch. And there's one number I think that's also worth putting into these. It's something that has been mentioned in the past to have in here is the land angle. So what we can see here is that that far right column on the screen there is that the highest land angle is with the CB. So it's got that maximum spin from these three heads. That's retaining the steepest angle of descent, which helps control into the greens. For me, the extra ball speed and extra launch angle is given a little bit more launch angle on the P than the T. So this is really where you're looking at what's best for someone. Is it a little, 45 degrees is still plenty of land angle, so none of them are struggling to stop. But that higher launch and lower spin will result in proportionally a little bit more yardage, and you get a little bit more forgiveness. Whereas if someone isn't necessarily looking for maximum forgiveness or looking to keep the top of the flight down a little bit, then the T brings that launch angle down and that spin down a little bit. So you're getting variations in launch and spin, variations in forgiveness. So what we can see is strongest flight, essentially from a peak height and a land angle point of view, is the T. Then it moves up to the P, but the launch angle is a little higher, but with maximum forgiveness. And the CB gives the steepest angle of descent, therefore maximum control, but the least tech on the heads. So there is the ability with any of these models to blend between the sets, and certainly the T and the CB from a ball speed point of view at the top end, when you're looking at a 4 or 5 iron, you're going to see a little bit more of a difference on ball speed there. But there are slightly different feels, slightly different spin profiles, but also giving different land angles, pitches of flight, but also forgivenesses and therefore feels. So between the three relatively different setups, you can really kind of blend across the sets and create the ball flight and the forgiveness and distance that you're looking for. But being forged, they're all adjustable, they're easily bent for loft and lie. So that's also something where there's a good advantage to these heads versus some other models on the market. So hope that helps selection the right model from the PXG, for a few of the PXG range, and highlights the differences between them.